Hi, Brittany, Carolyn. First, here's what happened in Carolyn Toss podcast. Thank you so much for speaking with us. When I started watching the show, like at the beginning, Alice's role isn't really defined. She only becomes a producer, as we know a producer to be like closer to the like episode 4 to 6. And what was interesting to me was like it occurred to me this was only the second time I've ever seen a Black woman in this era being portrayed as a producer. The first time was Tessa Thompson's character Sylvie in Baby's
Yes.
Love.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
this is it's such TV is new, as you said. It's a new role. It's a new role for Black women. Like she's like, I see TV as a future for myself as a Black woman in this space. So for you being an actress, like what was it like for you to get to play such a pivotal character? As you said, the showrunner said like she's based on two characters combined. Like, but for you as a Black actress playing a character who has such a pivotal role in the development of a story and of Julia Child's character, who is she was a trendsetter. Both women were trendsetters because this was the first time a woman cooking on TV became popular. So like, what was that like for you and the research that went into that?
So because I'm the only series regular that doesn't have one person that's their person, everybody else has a character. Those people are real people. They all have, diaries or biographies or whatever. To me, it was important that Alice is a real person and that I was able to look at the people who've done it before and to honor them and to bring their names into the space. So I did a lot of research about Black producers at that time. Madeline Anderson becomes a character later on. And Madeline Anderson is also one of our first Black documentarians to have a film, out there. And she becomes a character. She also worked in public television and was a producer. Carol Monday Lawrence was a producer at WGBH. And I remember finding an interview that she did talking about meeting Julia Child and Barbara Barrow Morey. And they worked at WGBH, same place, a little later in like the late 60s, early 70s, producing Say Brother. Stan Lathan was also on that too. And that was a big turning point for me because I thought, well, that is Alice. And that is probably Alice's trajectory. So if for me, anytime I have a character, even if it's a fictional thing, I could be doing Chekhov or Shakespeare or whatever. I had a teacher who said, you always approach it like that character is in the room with you, that they're a real person and they are watching what you're doing and that you have to honor them, and it's not like you try to paint over it and gloss it over and make it really nice and pretty. They can look at it and be like, oh, that makes me feel awkward or uncomfortable, but that is me. And that I felt the same responsibility to Alice and the Alices that we don't know, just like I think Sarah felt with Julia or David felt with Paul. And it was actually making sure that I found those real women that made me want to be even more grounded and truthful to this character.
So one of the things that I really love about how this show explores femininity and the female experience, especially the Black female experience, is that women are almost instinctively, we learn how to observe things and how to read people without noticing. Like there's scenes between Russ and Alice where, especially the scenes I found really interesting, is after his wife had the baby and he's talking about how tired he is. And she's like, what about your wife?
Yes.
Like she's all Google Gaga. And you can tell. And Alice says, she's like, no, she's not. She's just as tired or even more exhausted than you, but he's not.
Yes.
He's more on his tiredness. And then there's the scenes with Avis and her where she's like, as you were saying earlier, like Avis is like being a white woman. She doesn't immediately pick up on the racism that Alice is experiencing. She just thinks that Alice just isn't assertive enough. She's like, oh, you just, you got to be pushing. And Alice said, you can tell she's like, ain't got nothing to do with me being pushy. Exactly. Yes. And there's scenes like that with Julia too, where like Julia wasn't even aware that it was Alice who sold the story. It was her who made the show a syndication. But Alice is just observing how these people aren't observing their own worlds. So for you as an actress, like how being an actress and being able to read people's body language and having to use that as a performer, how does that inform you as Alice, but also how does that also inform you as Brittany yourself as a person moving through all of these spaces?
I mean, that is kind of who I am as a person. I tend to be someone who likes to observe and kind of read a room and a situation before speaking. It's just like, I want to take in my environment and what's happening and then figure out what kind of package I want to deliver of language or whatever. So Alice and I are very in line with that. And maybe that's why I got cast in the part, is like, I feel like I just understand that. But I also just want to shout out the writers, because even though our showrunner and the head creator of the show are two men, every other writer in the room was a woman. And that I think is a big reason why there feels like there's great specificity in that, and why a lot of the men do have a lot of language and it's a lot of like rat-a-tat-tat-tat. But then when you see Julia and Alice and Avis, it's more about the emotionality and what they're observing. And I think that is because of all of the experiences that those writers had and then talked to each other about in the writer's room and put that in the script.
Yeah, I love like dialogue that's fast, but I love moments just like just observing and watching. And I think all of the female characters, especially even the Judith, the publicist, just the way
You're fine. You're fine.
Just the way she observes stuff. I love the interactions and
Yeah.
how the women themselves are just watchers, but also speakers as well. So thank you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and I live in New York, right? So like that is part of being in New York, period, is that you observe, you observe things all of the time and you're just taking it in. And I try to people watch as much as possible. Like that's honestly probably where I get a lot of my acting from, is just watching others. And it's kind of been crazy during the pandemic. You get to be a little more subversive about it. You know, people are, you can hide behind the mask, and I feel like I can actually see people's interactions more and just take that in and use that, or, you know, store it for whatever character needs it down the line.
Great. Well, you did a fantastic job. I can't wait to see the other episodes. I need to see who that exact guy is.
Go see it. It's a fun episode. That's one of my favorites.